War Toronto defiant. Charge coming up from the output. Will be able to take down Mendoza. Turns around. He gets the shatter.
Welcome back.
Oh, man. Welcome back indeed.
Opponent needs damage boosted. Paid.
Oh! That is filthy.
What more could you ask for?
It's great. Another one. There it is. How did you save this one?
Oh, no! You are kidding me! Another one!
Popping right away. Cruz falls. Everyone purple anti-yields. That is a one-team fight. Rally comes down, but Nico's using it just to run back home.
That is so sick.
DM gets his grab eaten by Darko for the second time this series, if I'm not mistaken, and Darko gets two.
This is still Baby Bay going to get to dominate this space. You're in an uncomfortable spot right now if you're Philly, because if you show yourself, that's what happens. You get obliterated.
It's coming through, and now Dogman getting it booped on the side. The boop god Toby comes up with it, but Darko's bomb!
A crazy fight here.
This is certainly going to be a Philadelphia Fusion point unless somehow the magic happens and 3 kills come through for the Atlanta Reign. They refuse to say die.
The second Overwatch League homestand is here. Yes, we are in Hotlanta, Georgia, at the Cobb Energy Center in the shadow of downtown Atlanta. We thank you very much for joining us here on the ESPN_esports Twitter. My name is Arda Ocal. Alongside me, the man who is the Adam Schefter of esports. In fact, he was named so on this very desk. Jacob Wolf, how are you, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I am great. Initial thoughts, we are here. The venue looks great inside, a little bit of a different setup than what we saw in Dallas. You are an Atlanta boy, born and raised. What are your thoughts on being here, and what are your thoughts on the venue?
Well, I'm particularly happy to be home, but also 2,700 people are about to pack what's right in front of us. So this is super exciting. Crowd behind us, food trucks, all these people pouring in. We saw some of the players walking in. I'm very excited for the Atlanta Homestand weekend.
Yes, of course, Atlanta, Georgia, the home of fried chicken and collard greens, the home of Ludacris, Migos, and of course the TV show Atlanta. Also the Big Boss Man. Let's get to the schedule of events. Don't forget, every single matchup will be live on the ESPN app. The Toronto versus Atlanta matchup will also be on ABC. This is Saturday's schedule. I have a big issue with the ordering of these matchups. May I say, Jacob, unless Atlanta requested this, hello to our fans watching to the left over there, unless Atlanta requested not going last, I have no fathomable idea why the Atlanta Reign in their hometown would not be going in the main event spot, closing out the show on Saturday and Sunday. Why on earth would that happen?
Wouldn't it make a lot of sense, right, if that was the case? That they should be the last part of the show. This is their venue. This is their home. I'm a little disgusted as well.
We're going to
talk
about
what is this schedule?
Exactly. We're going to talk about it with the CEO and general manager of the Atlanta Reign, Paul Hamilton. That's coming up a little bit later on. We have a couple of other guests for you as well. But here's how I would have scheduled things. Why don't we take a look at that? Because I am befuddled. I just don't understand why Atlanta is not going last. This is their homestand. This is their moment. And look, in Dallas, in Texas, 77% of the people that came to the Dallas homestand were from the state of Texas. But guess what? Houston is a 4-hour drive away. And we were there with the ESPN Esports desk. There were a lot of Houston fans that made the trip. Here in Atlanta, the closest Overwatch market is 10 hours away in Miami. So this is Atlanta living in a bubble. I assume this is going to be majority Atlanta fans. Maybe a few fans from across the country will have made the trip because this is a novelty. It's the first time. But they're going to want to see the Atlanta Reign. People are here for Atlanta, and they're going to want to see the Atlanta Reign go last. Maybe we can show up my schedule in a little bit, but I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me that Atlanta is not going last unless they requested it. But even if they did, they should still. Overwatch League should say, you know what? You guys are, this is your moment.
And it's a good matchup, too. It's Toronto and Atlanta, our two respective home cities. It would be a fun one to have right in prime time, you know, at 4:45 today. It makes very little sense to me, and they're not the last match tomorrow either, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly.
So
They're
I
the
don't know
third
what's up
match-
with
They're
this.
the third match in both situations. If it were me, actually, what I would do, I know there's a couple of challenge matchups. If Atlanta is going third and that is their choice, okay, let's give that a pass. Let's put Defran and Mangachu on last. Even if it's not on stream live, put it for the home crowd. Let the home audience, because a lot of people, we've already seen a ton of Defran jerseys out here. Okay?
Yeah,
he
we got out of
retired-
the car, and there was one right there.
Immediately. People love Defran. Atlanta has the most cheer bits of any team in the league, in large part to Defran and his popularity. Let's just call a spade a spade. Put that on last. Put that on as the main event today or tomorrow, so that at least the home crowd can have something to cheer for and go home happy.
Yeah,
Just
I
a
mean,
thought.
I don't get it. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They should be the last match. And I was at the Atlanta airport yesterday. There were a lot of different Overwatch bags. I'm sure people traveled for here. This is a southeast regional hub, but still, make it work. Make it work.
That was a lot of heat for scheduling, but I'm passionate about scheduling. But also, the other thing that the Atlanta homestand maybe doesn't necessarily benefit from is the fact that, yes, there are some playoff spots up for grabs. NYXL has the opportunity to take the first spot here. The Shanghai Dragons, Guangzhou Charge, still battling for a playoff spot. But we have a lot of basement teams competing here this weekend. And yes, the schedule is set in advance, but that certainly doesn't help.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is the worst of the best, you know, like, or the best of the worst, I guess is the right proper term. Right. But, you know, this is the home market. This is, you know, the only homestand this year for an expansion team, so they're new to this. But this is exciting, right? I think Dallas is really successful, and we look at LA as very soon in LA Live. This is a really interesting sort of mix. It's very different than the other two, and it's a little bit smaller, but I do expect it to go really well today.
So take us through the evolution. How did we get here? How did Atlanta get chosen to be an expansion team, or not just an expansion team, but also for a homestand weekend, and just the evolution of us being here today?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at who they expanded to last year, right? We have teams like Guangzhou, we have teams like Paris, Atlanta, etc. And it makes a lot of sense. If you're going to do local events in the U.S., where would you do them? You would do them in places that are regional hubs for their area, right? So Dallas is very much a regional hub for the Southwest. It is right in the center. It's got two major airports. It's so easy to access. Atlanta's the same way, and LA are very similar as well. When I look at things like the Overwatch League, there's really 4 American cities that make a lot of sense, and that's Dallas, Los Angeles, New York, and Atlanta. And so making sure that you go off without a hit makes a lot of sense. And by the time we get done with this season, right, in a month and a half, by the time this season's over, there will have been Overwatch events in every single one of those cities: Los Angeles, New York, Dallas, and Atlanta.
Right.
And it makes a lot of sense. And so to me, you know, this is the hub of the Southeast. There's states like Tennessee and Alabama and North Carolina, South Carolina. They don't have a team to root for. So if you're an Overwatch fan that lives in those cities, this is the place to be.
I also want to know what the state boundaries are for Atlanta. Each market is assigned a sort of boundary that they occupy. So I'm really curious how far-reaching Atlanta is, because as we mentioned, the closest team is 10 hours away. It's a 10-hour drive to Miami, and they're they're isolated in this area of the United States. Now, Los Angeles, you just mentioned that schedule is fantastic. They have the battle for LA, the battle for California, they have the Vancouver Titans, they have San Francisco Shock. They have some great teams competing there. So perhaps, yes, we were very tough on the scheduling here, but also the teams. It's just the fact that there aren't very many strong teams competing here this weekend, and only a very few amount of playoff spots on the line.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to suggest, what teams do you think would be here otherwise? What teams would you have liked to see here that are not here? Any of them?
Well, I mean, Vancouver comes to mind, San Francisco. I mean,
I would
people
have
want
loved
to see
have
the
seen,
best teams,
I would have
right?
loved to have seen Dallas and Houston at this event, and they're not. I know they were at their
We
homestand.
had that for the battle. You saw the footage earlier there. I mean, it was an unbelievable scene to have Dallas versus Houston, the battle for Texas. You know, it was a great atmosphere just outside of Dallas, Texas, for that first homestand. I would have loved to see that again. Would have been nice. I don't know if it would have resonated as much here in Atlanta,
Right.
but to see rivalry teams is definitely a treat. Now, we should also mention that Dallas was a capacity of 4,500. It was sold out both days. It is sold out here as well, but the capacity is a little smart, about 2,700. And the vibe is a little bit different here. I mean, this is the Cobb Energy Center sees attractions such as the symphony orchestra and the ballet, whereas the venue in Dallas was a hockey arena. So we're going to get a little bit of a different vibe.
It's not the first time we've seen esports here, though. There was an E-League event a couple years ago here. There was their first finals for E-League and Counter-Strike. So this is not a first for this venue. And it was really fun. It was a big crowd, but, you know, relative, right? It's 2,700 people.
All right, we're going to get to our first guest here in just a second. As we set that up, though, let's talk a little bit of the playoff picture. There are a couple spots up for grabs. Well, how do you think this weekend will shake down, Jacob? I
don't know, man. If you look at the playoff schedule, a lot of these teams are in it, but they're really not. A lot of the playoffs are set with other teams, but I mean, I have to go with my rooting interest. I have to go with Atlanta.
Yeah,
you have to go with Atlanta.
Really?
Yeah, I'm rooting for Atlanta here. Come on, I'm just gonna lay it all out there.
I mean, they have no chance to make it to the stage playoff. Somebody's must go right in the Atlanta versus Toronto matchup. We have a lot to talk about there, by the way, because he's an Atlanta guy and I'm a Toronto guy. So anybody in Toronto right now, feel free to send some tweets to ESPN_esports. Let us know how much you love the city of Toronto. It's a sad day for Toronto. Kawhi Leonard just left, but we still got the chip, okay? I'm going to Kawhi and dine on my chip and dip. It's fine. We're all good. But here, today, big bets up for grabs. We're going to get set for our first guest here. Malik Forte, host of Overwatch. Overwatch host is going to be joining us in just a second. But also Guangzhou Charge, Shanghai Dragons. What a turnaround for the Shanghai Dragons. Incredible. After going 0-42, look at them making the playoffs, in contention, in the hunt. It's great to see.
Yeah, you always want to see teams bounce back, right? Overall, when you look at that, you want to see teams like the Shanghai Dragons bounce back. The most losing team in sports of all time, I believe, is the correct stat. Right. If you look at last season's schedule, we're so terrible. And it's exciting to see them sort of have figured it out at least a little bit, right? Enough to be in the playoffs. So, you know, looking at the playoffs overall, I think that they will be a contender throughout this, and I'm excited to see them play.
Is this Vancouver's, as we take a look at the standings here, the Excelsior are 5-0. They are the only undefeated team left. In stage number 3, they have an opportunity to go 7-0 with 2 victories here, and they have a great chance to do it here as well. The Excelsior don't have the strongest of teams that they're facing here. They're facing Florida and they're facing Toronto on Sunday. So a great opportunity for them to go 7-0 in this stage. The Vancouver Titans back there again. The Shock back there again. They've made every single stage playoffs. It's been the Shock and the Titans in the finals in stage 1 and 2, Jacob. Do you think that we are on a collision course for that to happen again in stage 3?
I don't think so. I think this may be the Excelsior stage. They've looked really great. Like you said, they're probably going to go 7-0 throughout or 2-0 and compound that to 7-0 throughout the weekend. You know, I think the New York Excelsior had a good stage. They looked so great last year as well. They looked like they were going to be the proverbial finalists playing at Barclays Center, and they didn't. And I think that they want to play in Philadelphia here shortly, and that means that they need to win this stage.
Well, we have Malik Forte, Overwatch League talent, joining us on the desk. Thanks for joining us, my friend. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you guys for having me.
First of all, let's peep that watch right there. That watch is just unbelievable.
This
Look at that
thing, this is nothing, man. Just a little guest watch.
He is styling and profiling here at the desk. So, big questions first. Okay, Capital J Journalism. We are ESPN after all.
Yep.
I watch Watchpoint. I see those Coca-Cola cups on the desk.
Yeah.
Is there actually soda in them? I don't think so, Malik.
That's a big mystery, right? Everyone wants to know that. I will say my cup doesn't have any soda in it. I don't drink soda.
Does it have something else in it?
Yeah. from time
it is a red cup, after all.
From time to time, I will fill it with a beverage of sorts. You know, I'll put some Dasani in there. I'm trying to stay on brand.
Of course. Wow, okay. Good call.
For the most part, no. Those cups are just there for product placement, you know.
Yeah, I understood.
We got to the sponsors.
We got to the bottom of it here at the ESPN Esports Desk.
Out.
You are welcome, is what we're
hard-hitting journalism, baby.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let's take us through just the season so far. What are your thoughts being on the desk every single week, and events like this here in Atlanta?
Oh man, the homestand. It's great. It's great. I mean, essentially, it's like a festival, man. It's like a celebration of the league, a celebration of esports. It's like when we come through town, everyone comes out and they show so much support. So I like the homestand model. I think it's great. And as far as the season goes, we're getting to a really juicy part of the season because we've been seeing the same meta all year long. Mm-hmm. It's been a lot of 3-3, and it's starting to shift a little bit. So it's been exciting seeing everyone, kind of buy into it and now slowly buy out and try new things.
Do you think that's because we're potentially moving to a 2-2-2 meta?
Yeah, let me put this behind
There we go.
behind me.
We're live, pal.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, it looks like it. Everyone's testing out these heroes, you know, these new compositions where they're throwing in 2 or 3 DPS heroes. So I think we're definitely going to see
No more
something along those
goats.
lines.
Although when I was flipping through Snapchat today,
Yeah.
I noticed the Overwatch League geotag. It's 2 Bud Light cans and a goat in the middle.
Is there?
It's really a goat in the middle. It's great. I was like, that's really on brand.
See, that's the thing. We gotta make fun of ourselves. You gotta make fun of what's going on. You
Let
know?
me ask
So-
you this: you're gonna help moderate a debate for us in just a second here.
Oh,
'cause
okay.
We got a big Atlanta-Toronto matchup coming up, and we're
Yeah.
hometown boys here. But I do want to ask you this: in terms of next season,
Mm-hmm.
if you had your way and it was your decision, would you make it home and away games, or would you make it a traveling roadshow?
I mean, I would make it a traveling roadshow, I would think, but I would do home and away games. So let me rephrase what I'm saying. I would do home games in different home markets for home teams. So for instance, we're here in Atlanta.
Yep.
So we would come to Atlanta, but we wouldn't be here like all the time.
Okay.
You know, we'd be here every now and then.
So you do like you go from Atlanta to like Orlando or Miami, and then
Yeah,
you,
to the
you-
to
and
the,
then
to the
you'd,
next
like,
team
rotate.
city.
Yeah,
To the
yeah,
next
you
team
bounce
city.
around the country.
I think that's great because if we're here every day, then people they wouldn't feel as compelled to come because they're like, oh, I can just go tomorrow. You know?
Right.
But if
you got to
we're-
make it special.
You're making it special by coming, just frequently.
What do you think of what do you think of this venue here in Atlanta? Like, this is such a cool, upscale looking venue. Dallas was a big hockey rink. Like, what do you make of the disparity in venues?
I like it. I like the variety, and me, I'm a theater kid. So, like,
Nice.
honestly, just walking out on that stage, it was a blast of the past for me. I was trying not to bust out in a Shakespeare soliloquy. I felt it coming. But no, it was great, man. I like it, and I think that it's intimate. That's very important for fans, to feel like they're in the game with the players who are on stage. So I feel like there's not a bad seat in that house. And
Right.
That's awesome. I wasn't at the Dallas Homestand because I was at a charity event. But from what I gathered from that, the arena was so big. I don't think it was as intimate as what we're seeing here.
It was a great
We're-
crowd.
And I think we're going to get a little bit even more intimate with the Novo Theater in Los Angeles. I was there a couple weeks ago for E3, and really just small, sort of homey vibe.
Yeah.
Even compared to this.
Yeah, dude, let's not even talk about the LA Homestand. Those games,
Crazy,
games
right?
are going to be crazy.
That
Yeah.
benefit of scheduling there. You got strong teams. You got the home Battle of LA and Battle
Yeah.
of California with San
Yeah.
Francisco as well. That is a great laid out schedule.
Lot of
Here, though,
playoff
Atlanta's not on last.
Yeah,
Somehow.
I don't know. I don't know why.
I have a theory. I think it has to be because Atlanta decided that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
All
probably
right.
why.
Listen, speaking of Atlanta, they're playing Toronto, okay? So we got a little debate going on here. I'm a Toronto boy. He's an Atlanta boy, okay? So
Okay.
we need you to help moderate a debate for us.
I'll be devil's advocate for both
Okay.
sides.
So
Did
we're
you do
gonna
debate
we're
in
gonna-
high
we're gonna go
school?
back and forth.
I did. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so
I
you
know
should
all
be
about
good
the
at this.
debate.
You
I
should
know
be all
that,
about
bro.
this, yeah.
So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to a special prediction before we get to our debate, and here it is.
Hi Arda, hi Jacob. It's Emily here, and I am supporting Toronto in this match, despite previously saying that Atlanta's probably a better team than their record and Toronto's rebuilding. Because of Logix, I want to support his return. He looked really a lot better last week. We saw some signs of life from Toronto in his return to the Overwatch League stage last week. So if Toronto are going to beat Atlanta, they're going to do it through their DPS players, including Logix. I'm supporting Toronto because it's a better city as well. Sorry, Jacob. Toronto is awesome. I used to live there, and I really enjoyed my time there. Back to you guys.
What great journalist.
man.
Emily Rand, take a bow. What a terrific talent here at ESPN. I
Yo,
mean, yes.
She got half of that statement right. Half of it was solid. The other half, I don't know.
What do you have to say, Mr. Wolf?
Man, I'm never getting any love around here.
No,
Jesus,
no,
come on.
I love Atlanta, dude.
All right, you love
I'm
Atlanta. At
with you.
least somebody's on my side.
I used to live
Jeez.
here. I love the city. So her saying that Toronto's a better city, that's a bit
Ooh,
of a-
it might be a tag team here, me
Bit
and
of a
Emily
stretch.
versus
But you know
two.
what? You never can keep your champions
No,
anyway, so
but
it doesn't matter.
Her other statement about Logix, I do agree with. And the Toronto Defiant, I do agree with her on that stuff. So,
All right, give us your pitch. Why Atlanta?
Well, not only do we have some of the best food in the country,
Yep.
which is super important. Players got to eat well before they go on stage.
Facts.
But also, this team looks like it's getting better. Toronto does not. And even if Toronto was good, and I saw them, I met up with some of the people last year in October in Korea as they tried to scout all these big teams and lost out to people like the Vancouver Titans trying to get this team. Now they're adding all these random players. What is this? Come on. Toronto Defiant look like crap, and I think that Atlanta Reign are going to beat them today.
My rebuttal is this. Malik Forte, do you remember where you were on October 24th, 1992?
I don't.
How old were you in 1992?
I was like 7 or something like that, yeah.
I distinctly remember where I was.
Where were you?
I was at home in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And for that day, it was a glorious day in the city of Toronto, Mr. Forte.
Why?
Because our sports teams were very strong, Mr. Forte.
Like the Blue Jays were.
The Toronto Blue Jays, indeed,
Yeah.
on that day, in this very city that we are in right now, defeated the Atlanta Braves to win the World Series and hoist the trophy high above their heads. And just like those conquering Blue Jays defeated the Braves on that day, here today, the Defiant will do the exact same thing off the backs of Logix and Mangachu and the rest of our Toronto company. We may have lost Kawhi, but we have not lost our championship spirit.
Okay.
So you're not getting one in the Overwatch League this year. You're not getting a championship anytime soon in Overwatch.
Enjoy and feast on these delicious Defiant highlights because there are so many.
I agree with you on that. First off, I like that you used the Blue Jays' success and equated that to the Defiant. That's a good one right there. But I will agree with you, though, that the Toronto Defiant, they're kind of the favorite to win this game based off the fact that they made some solid
Listen to the man,
acquisitions
Jacob.
on
Listen
their
to
team.
the man.
Logix was one of my favorite DPS players last year in the Overwatch League. So to see him not get played as much with the Florida Mayhem and to see them put in to Vic over him was very frustrating. And he's getting his time to shine on the Toronto Defiant. That said, they did add a lot of new pieces. They got Mangachu, they got Gods in there. And Atlanta, their team has been playing together all season long, with the exception of Baby Bay, who came in last stage. That said, their chemistry is a little better. So honestly, it's kind of their game to lose because not only are they here in front of their home crowd, but they've got the synergy necessary to win this game. They've been playing together for a while.
How much do you think the crowd will be a factor?
A huge factor. Oh, I think it's going to be a huge factor. I think that type of stuff definitely factors in esports a little more than people may think. Because a lot of people, they don't take into the fact that these guys are in their heads quite a bit outside of just playing the game. And I think once these guys get out there on stage, especially the Atlanta Reign, when they hear the crowd going wild for them, they're gonna bring their A game. They're not gonna go out there and slouch, And they have not had a terrible stage. They might not be, they may be winless right now, but they've played the top teams very close. Yeah. They almost beat the Shock. They almost beat the Vancouver Titans. They've been good.
Very impressive.
Very impressive. So I don't know, but I would give Toronto the edge slightly in this game.
You heard the man. Listen to the man. What we do know is between Atlanta and Toronto, somebody's O must go.
Yeah.
Now, you will be witness to a little bit of a wager that Jacob and I will be having. If Toronto win this game, Jacob will have to attempt on social media the bottle cap challenge.
Oh, right.
But he will have to do this. He'll be wearing a few things. He'll be wearing that.
Oh boy, you got to wear the Defiant cap, dude.
He'll be wearing our national brand here, based in Toronto.
What
a
is
little
that?
Roots right here, little Roots City. Just get acquainted with that very well. And you know what? Under that, you're probably going to have to wear a little bit of this as well. Let's just put that right there. Okay, you might just get used to wearing this
Vince
and
Carter
having this
jersey.
here. Okay, get used to this right here.
Oh, this
Malik looks good on you too, man.
I would actually, if you don't want to do this,
Go ahead.
I'll step in here for you real quick.
Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead. See what it feels like. I mean, you're going to feel it in a few hours anyway.
Remember
Remember
me ripping Canadian glasses and sweeping them off the desk? Is that your revenge for this?
Wait a second. What are your stipulations?
Go ahead, Jacob. What are my stipulations?
A couple days ago was the famous Coney Island Nathan's hot dog eating contest, right?
Yeah.
Joey Chestnut took home another title.
Right.
Well, down about 25 minutes away from here, we had the varsity famous Atlanta food. And this man has to do a hot dog and a side eating challenge on camera. 4 hot dogs, 1 side, and he has to get them all down, and we will time him on this.
Okay. All right, so a food challenge.
Food
challenge is on.
May
the best team win.
Make
north
him wear
of the
like
border.
a Falcons jersey.
We'll get him. We'll get him something.
You got to wear a Jamal Anderson jersey. That's what happens.
We got SunTrust Park right down the street. We'll go get a Braves hat or something.
A bet is a bet.
I like that.
Malik, thank you very much for joining us, my friend.
Much
Enjoy the day.
So much. Thank you, guys.
Great on Watch Point. Great as an Overwatch host. talk a little bit about. Let's talk. We're going to show a little bit of Atlanta footage here, Jacob. As we see this, just talk a little bit about Atlanta and their gameplay, and a little bit of history as well.
Yeah, so I mean, this, like we said earlier in the broadcast, they are the only expansion team to host a homestand. They're owned by Cox, which is an Atlanta organization. You see it on their jersey. And this is a huge deal for them. I think that this is going to be a really big weekend. If you look at their gameplay footage here, they have beat the Shanghai Dragons. And honestly, very impressive sort of run up to this event for Atlanta. This is their home venue. I'm excited for this crowd. It should look really, really good for them. We are currently welcoming on Paul Hamilton momentarily. And overall, you know, I'm impressed by the Atlanta Reign, despite this clip right now. But, you know, I'm excited for this weekend. It should be a very good weekend for a city that loves esports and has had many esports events before, and a great, great venue.
And taking a look at the Atlanta Reign franchise history, they agreed to buy into the Overwatch League in July 2018. And of course, as you mentioned, Jacob, founded by Atlanta conglomerate Cox Enterprises and Province Incorporated, and the only expansion team to host a homestand. We mentioned that we are in an isolated area. The closest team to here is a 10-hour drive away. So this is going to be a very interesting to look at the logistics and just the numbers coming out of this weekend. And someone who can talk about how this all happened, of course, is the CEO and general manager of Atlanta Reign, who joins us on the desk right now. His name is Paul Hamilton. Paul, thank you very much for joining us. How are you?
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Welcome to the desk.
Good to see you, Jacob.
Yeah.
First of all, how do you have time to join us on the desk? Being that's the Atlanta
You must
Homestand
have
weekend.
some good workers out
Is this
there.
the calm before the storm for you as well? Or?
It's because Jacob asked, but after hearing you, I didn't want to come up.
Oh,
This, Toronto, that.
you can turn that way. I'm sorry. You can turn that way and talk to Jacob. Let's talk about. Let's start with this. Just how was Atlanta chosen to be a homestand weekend, and what were the logistics that went into that?
The league put it out there that there would be availability to try to do 3 homestands. We obviously wanted one because we felt like we could learn a lot from doing it once. And as we're going through the process, it's become more and more fun, more and more nerve-wracking, but we've already learned a lot about what we could do better, and we're hoping to improve next year. But right now, we just want to have a great show and have the fans have a great time.
You had people like Dallas who had almost 2 years to think about this, right? They bought into the Overwatch League at the end of the summer of 2017. Their homestand was in April. You know, that's a lot of time to think about this. Not so much for you all. You guys signed on, as we mentioned, in July, and now you're here less than a year later putting this together. What was that process like? Was that super stressful to put this all together?
It was more a labor of love, I would say. I felt like we knew we were going to get it before the world knew, so we had been working for quite a while. As you know, we weren't leaked till we got much closer to the event. So I feel like we were sort of 3 months ahead of what everyone saw. So we felt really prepared, actually.
Yeah, and what is it like, you know, being owned by an Atlanta organization? Obviously, there's some presence here, as we saw downstairs. You have people like Coca-Cola here and some of these others. Chick-fil-A, we were seeing people pile in sandwiches. What is it like having local support of sort of your area?
Oh, this city is amazing, as you know. Coke, we talked to Coke, and they were amazing to deal with. They said, hey, you guys need to make sure that we're engaged with each other. And I just laughed. I'm like, no, you're right. We need to make sure we're engaged with each other. So Coke's been right there with us the whole way, and so is everyone else in Atlanta.
So why here? Why Cobb Energy Center versus everything else? We've seen events at the Fox Theater before here. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's some really large sports stadiums, one across the street in SunTrust Park. But why here? Why the Cobb Energy Center?
I think the acoustics for an esports venue, and when you get inside, you'll see, if you're on stage, we really want to make our team feel the support that they have, and it's layered 3 high, and it just feels like they're standing on top of you. In addition to that, they've hosted several other esports events that I was able to come see, and really thought they did a great job and that the venue laid out properly for it.
Paul, I have to ask, when looking at the schedule, I noticed that Atlanta's not on last both days. Is that a decision on your end? Why is that the case?
It was more because we wanted to make sure that all of the Atlanta fans stayed for as long as they could, and partially because of television.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
So just this
it was sort of the better for scheduling. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was better for you for Atlanta.
It was better for the
third.
networks for us to be third.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why the scheduling is the way that
the
it
only
is.
game
Okay.
on ABC today.
Exactly. Okay, so that makes sense from a television scheduling perspective. Just looking at it, it just seems odd that Atlanta's not going last, so to speak,
Agreed.
in the main event spot.
Yep. So we're happy where we are.
So we heard Arda say earlier that there was a stat that 77% of the people that attended the Dallas homestand were Texas folks. Do you know your percentage of people who are from Georgia versus regionally in the southeast?
We don't, but my assumption is we'll have a greater regional presence than just Atlanta.
And we know some of the Overwatch teams own different home markets. What does yours encapsulate? Is it all of Georgia plus some more? What does that look like?
I believe ours is Georgia and northern Alabama. But Atlanta is the
you're
capital
the hub,
of the South.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter what it says we own. We really think of ourselves as sort of the whole Southeast.
You don't have much competition for that, so I think you're in a good spot.
I feel like we have the right city for sure.
Let's talk about just the Reign and their performance this season. Obviously a different Stage 3 than Stage 1. Put your GM hat on now. When you're looking at these results or just how the team is competing across the stages, what are you thinking?
12 teams got here before us, picked the best talent in the world. We came in and competed with 7 others. It's hard to go around the world. We knew we wanted to have an international roster. We knew we wanted to have players that sort of represented our whole fan base. Obviously, we're not happy with where we are now. We've had some really high highs, and we've also lost to some teams that we don't think we should have. Having Dufran on the team was amazing, and that was certainly a loss that we've had to recover from. We think Baby Bay's done a great job plugging in, but we're still a work in progress.
What's the relationship like between Dufran and the Reign right now?
Amazing.
Yeah,
he's a great guy. He was honest, totally honest the whole way. If you ask the players, they'll tell you how much they like him. And Dufran flew in from Denmark to be here with the fans today.
That's impressive. Yeah, he has a one-on-one, a 1v1 happening here.
Yeah.
Get you another Toronto versus Atlanta event. But just the idea, like having him here is a great. I mean, Atlanta still has the most support. Cheer bits week after week. Atlanta gets the most support. That must be satisfying to see. And how much of that do you credit to Dufran?
Oh, I credit it to everyone from the staff that we hired to the branding itself to Jacob always keeping an eye on everybody. No, really, I appreciate his coverage, and he'll tell you that. Dufran, our whole roster building, if you look at our team, I don't mean this negatively towards anyone else, but our team has a lot of personality. I don't ask them to hold back. They're not sitting there and holding it in. If they're upset, they're also not throwing things across the room. But you might get an occasional somebody's a feeder on stage, and you might get, Dufran, on Hollywood just going over a roof that no one thought you could go over. So I think they're fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, overall, what do you think moving forward you have to change this team to be even better than you are now?
At the end of the year, well, one of the things we've done is we've built an unbelievable contenders team, as you probably know. We have an exceptionally young team. We have a 14-year-old, 3 16-year-olds, a 17-year-old. We think that each of the players on our contenders team right now could play on an OWL roster. We have 2 two-way guys on that team as well that could certainly play on a roster. So the way we looked at it was, let's put the best team out there that we can get, and then let's plan for the future and make sure that we continuously get better and better to the point where we're always a top-tier team.
What do you take away from planning this homestand weekend going into next season and the scheduling changes?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
Just the idea of planning for this weekend and all the logistics that went into it. What do you take away from that as we plan for next season and having more homestands?
Well, one thing is I'm going to have my assistant mark the 2 weeks off before it and tell her to filter all emails. And if they don't say Atlanta homestand, they don't get answered. It just auto replies. But the takeaway is a lot of work goes into it, but there's a lot of people. Our fan base literally comes out in droves to help. I can't tell you how many people just are constantly there just throwing themselves behind it that aren't benefiting other than their sort of love for the game. Other than that, we're going to watch what happens this weekend. We're going to be critical of ourselves, sit down after it and say, what could we have done better? Could we have gone bigger? Just sort of look at ourselves whole.
What do you hope next year looks like, right? There's been a bunch of different format talk. Malik was just saying that he hopes it's sort of the traveling road show where you're not in every city every week, and it makes it special. Makes it like this, right? Mm-hmm. What do you hope for next week? What does that look like for you?
I hope for like a celebration of the game. I love the idea of you go to a city and you get to see this. You got to see Dallas. You get to see people that, as excited as I am to see all the Reign fans, I'm just as excited to see Mayhem fans and just sort of everybody that came out to support their teams. Just a general excitement about kind of celebrating it each weekend.
And how do you think, Overwatch is definitely in regular season matches are not getting the viewership numbers that they were last season? How do you think Overwatch sort of regains interest and sparks that, gets that spark again that it has?
Oh, I think there's a lot of things in the works that'll do that. We're as the org itself and as an ownership group, we're learning every day, and we've had some actually pretty significant ups over what we saw last year. So we're just figuring it out. I like to say it's a grown-up ownership group with a lot of smart people that don't cover their eyes if things aren't going the right way. They sit down and work at what it means, but the game itself is amazing. It'll continue to get better, and the fans will get bigger.
Paul, you've been very generous with your time. Thank you very much for joining us here on the ESPN
Thanks,
Esports desk. We'll let you get to the million things that you have to do. You have probably 500 emails in the process of having been on the desk here. All right, let's talk about the schedule happening this weekend, of course. Now we understand why Atlanta will be on third. That matchup, by the way, will be on ABC. And the main event today, so to speak, at least for the house, will be the Charge taking on the Dragons. Both of them still fighting for a playoff spot. Mayhem, of course, taking on the Excelsior, the strongest team here. And to break down all of the action for this weekend, we have Overwatch League caster Eric Doa Lonnquist. Eric is joining us here on the desk. Always happy to see you here, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, I'm psyched to be here, man.
Yes.
It's another homestand. Here we are. I'm back on the desk at ESPN. It's good to hang out.
Is this your first time ever in Atlanta, Georgia, or have you been here before?
I've never been here before.
What do you think? What are your initial thoughts?
It's humid, but no, it's great.
Welcome to the East Coast, man.
I know that's the thing. I mean, in Korea we had humidity during the summers and all that. Maybe not so extreme, but it was there. But California is making me soft. What can I say? But the food is great. Everybody's like really, really nice here, which is amazing. And we're doing Overwatch, so I couldn't ask for anything more.
Speaking of being soft, everyone says, "Oh, you grew up in Canada. You must be used to the cold." No, the second I left, now I'm a big baby when it comes to the cold.
It goes away fast.
Yeah,
your cold resistance drops. Quick,
as soon as you leave it, you're just done.
It's very
I've asked you this before, but I'd like to know again. Well, first of all, which matchup do you have? Do you know which matchup you have today?
I mean, I should, right?
Yeah, you should.
If I don't, that's a problem. No, I'm doing a Toronto versus Atlanta later. It's going to be
fantastic. Okay, so you will be on ABC. Okay.
Yeah, actually, I've got both Atlanta matches this weekend, so I'm pretty happy to get to shout out the home team here. And yeah.
Take us through the process of how those are selected. Like, how much input do you have in picking your matchups versus you're told this is what you're doing this weekend?
Really zero. I mean, we don't. None of us pick our matches or anything like that. I mean, everyone on the casting crew is not very particular about what teams we follow and things, because we don't want it to be a situation where somebody gets to cast all the good teams and somebody maybe doesn't get to cast the greatest teams all the time. So I think everyone's pretty democratic about it, and we let them set the schedule and just kind of adjust to. And it's nice that way because then you get a good mix of all the different teams and you get kind of familiar with everybody and you just don't have to worry about it,
So as a commentator, your match is going to be on ABC. You're calling the Defiant versus Reign matchup. How does your commentary style change when you're on ABC versus when you're on the Overwatch League stream or on the ESPN app?
Sure. So today there's kind of like a funky thing going on where actually Uber X are on ABC and Monty and I are on Twitch. We have tandem streams today.
Okay.
Weirdly enough, but no, Monty and I have
How
done
dare they?
I know, right now.
Wow, I'm just kidding.
Monty and I have we've done a bunch of ABC streams and stuff like that, obviously.
So how does that
on
change
Disney XD as well, and it doesn't change things a lot from my side, from the play-by-play side. Generally, what I need to do is throw in a little bit more explanation as far as like what the abilities do and things like that. Instead of, I always use Brigida's Ultimate as an example where, on a Twitch broadcast where I think the viewers are a bit more knowledgeable, I might say, oh, well, the team's using Rally, where if we're on ABC or network television or something like that, I say, oh, they're using Rally, giving the team the extra armor kind of thing. So just throwing those little details in there to help people kind of follow along a little bit more. And I don't think you need to really necessarily dumb things down for an audience like that. I don't like that term. But I think you need to be maybe a little bit more clear, maybe throw in a couple extra explaining things. So rather than dumbing it down, you just throw a couple, extra little bits in there to help people who maybe aren't as familiar with the game follow along a little bit easier that way.
It's not particularly an easy game to spectate.
It is not. It is a very difficult game to spectate for sure. But it's just kind of like anything. I've used this example and we've talked in the past too, where my wife is from South Korea and she hadn't seen American football really at all before. And I'm a big football fan, so we started watching games together. And
who's your team?
Green Bay Packers.
Okay.
Obviously, Wisconsin, born and raised for the most part. Moved to Minnesota, for college and things, but Wisconsin at heart. But anyway, when she first started watching football, there's 22 guys on the field, and all that. She's like, "What's going on? I don't know who to look at, what to follow, and all that." And for me, who'd grown up with it, everything seemed so simple, and that kind of made me realize that even a game like Overwatch, once you know the basic rules, you can start to kind of pick things apart when you watch the game. And so as I've explained it to people, people have told me that too, where it is kind of like any new sport, right? It's going to be very incomprehensible, very difficult to watch. But once you know the core rules, what the objectives are, the players are working towards, then it's a lot more simple kind of as time goes on to sort of pick that stuff apart.
So let's talk about the matchups here today. Let's start with the one that you've been prepping for all week long. Toronto taking on Atlanta. Seems like Toronto has a little bit of a different makeup in their lineup, and both players, Logix and Mangachu, looked pretty good last week. So I wonder if that's going to be a big factor here. And also, how much will the crowd be a factor for Atlanta to give them that motivation, that boost?
Well, I mean, you've got two things right here where Toronto definitely is, coming up. I think a little bit more. The additions have helped out. Logix obviously popped off a lot in their last match. I think Mangachu is a strong addition as well. Many Torb kills in his future, I'm sure, with the hammer. But on the Atlanta side of things, hopefully the home crowd is going to kind of give them a little bit of a boost. They are, 0-5 right now in the stage. But you got to think about these guys' schedule, right? They had the toughest schedule in Stage 3 of anybody in the Overwatch League. Their first week was San Francisco and then Vancouver. It literally does not get any more difficult than that, right? Maybe you throw New York in there too, but I think pretty obviously San Francisco and Vancouver are on top. Now, the San Francisco match, they did go 2-3. They took it to a Game 5. Vancouver, they did okay as well. They only got 4-0'd by Seoul. 3 of their losses have been 2-3. So I think when you look at it, Atlanta Reigns have had a tough schedule, but they've kind of hung with it, right? They are 0-5, but they made some of those losses close. If you look at their opponents today, Toronto today and then Florida tomorrow, I think they do have a chance of going 2-0 this weekend, especially with the home crowd advantage, right?
So what is your official prediction? Who is no longer winless?
I think it's going to be today's a tough one. Today is a tough one.
Are you allowed to make predictions as a?
Oh yeah,
you are. Okay.
Totally. I mean, at the end of the day, predictions are just fun, right? I mean,
it's your opinion. Yeah.
I'm not even an analyst either, right? So if I'm wrong, who cares? I'm just a play-by-play guy, right? But I don't know. I think Atlanta could take it.
One for you.
Finally,
I think
finally somebody on this desk agrees with it.
I think they could, because although I do agree that Toronto is looking better recently, I do think that they are on an upward trajectory. They have begun that. I think Atlanta, at its core, still probably has the better team right now. And you can tell by the way I'm slowing down that sentence that I don't know if I really believe myself when I say that. But no, I think if you put a gun to my head, I would have to pick Atlanta today. But I do think it is a tough choice.
Our last matchup today on Saturday here will be two teams who are still in the Stage 3 playoff hunt. For the Shanghai Dragons, it's win and in. If they go 2-0 this weekend, they will make it to the Stage 3 playoffs. They face the Guangzhou Charge, who need a little bit of help to make it to the playoffs.
Yeah.
What do you make of this? What a turnaround for Shanghai, first of all. 0-42.
Sure.
That, and by the way, that moment of them winning is one of the nominees for an ESPY awarded Best Esports Moment because it was such a monumental moment, particularly in Overwatch League. But now here they are. That's behind them now. Now they're back to winning ways, but now they face a tough task here with the Charge.
Yeah, and I think it does. It is worth saying too that the team that finally did get that win was a different team than the one that went 0-40. I mean, there was only like one player on that roster and one map of their win that was part of the 2018 team. So for all intents and purposes, you might as well put a different name on them. It's a different team this year, and it's a different team in every sense in that they're actually like pretty good right now. I mean, DM is insane. The Shanghai Dragons, some people I have heard are saying, maybe these guys can win it all. I disagree with that completely. I don't think we're there yet, but certainly this is a team that's finally coming into its own. I think like a lot of us kind of predicted, they would start to be an upper middle of the pack team at least, and it is going to be really cool to see what they can do in playoffs if they can make it. And a win against Guangzhou Charge should be like very easily achievable by these guys.
Of course, this is a rematch from last week. Shanghai won 3-1, but the second half of that matchup though was pretty competitive, more so than the scoreline suggests.
Well, the thing with the Charge is that they're such a frustrating team, right? Because if you look at that roster, there's a lot of really strong names on that roster. You've got players like Happy, players like Shu, And when I looked at this team coming into it, I thought this was going to be a much better team because of the history with these players, because of the individual talent you see there. And they did have a very, very difficult stage 1 and 2 in terms of strength of schedule. And so we kind of gave them a bit of a pass. We're like, all right, well, new team, they're kind of playing together, a lot of power individually, but they've got a tough schedule. You know, we expected them to do better in stage 3. That hasn't happened. So now the question is, what can this team really do, right? I mean, they've had these like little peaks here and there, but I think overall this is a team that for whatever reason, sometimes you put a lot of talent together on a roster and it just doesn't gel, and I wonder if maybe that's just what we're seeing with the Charge.
Well, the Shanghai Dragons are 5th in the ESPN Overwatch League power rankings, by the way, and another
reasonable.
team that is still battling is the Philadelphia Fusion, of course, last year's grand finalists. At Barclays Center. They are facing the Washington Justice, who have been struggling as well. I mean, we do have a lot
the
of
worst
teams.
team in the league.
Yeah, but like you said, I mean, Florida might
Sure.
have a say in that as well.
Florida's gunning for that spot. Yeah.
As we take a look at some of some of the numbers here between the Fusion and the Justice, but Washington still, though, they do have some interesting pieces, and guys like Sleepy who are in the mix, and the meta seem to favor them at times a little bit, but it just seems like they have trouble just staying consistent.
Right, and I think Washington, again, we just talked about the individual talent on the Charge, and I think Washington has that as well. You've got players like Corey especially, which in my mind is really the star of that team right now. And, players like Guido, who I still think is being horribly misused at support. That guy was a MVP, he's a finals MVP in Korea in the DPS role. Put that guy back on DPS, give him a shot. I mean, what do you have to lose at this point if you're Washington, right? And I also do think that Janus is a problem at main tank. I think he's had a few better games recently, but I still think he's one of the weaker main tanks in the league, and maybe a different player in that spot would not be such a bad idea for Washington. But, I think it's a team that has, a little bit of talent here and there, but I think they need some roster changes to really kind of be able to bring that out.
They're in flux, like they've made some managerial changes. They brought in some new people from various different parts of the business. What would you make changes for Washington if you wanted them to be a competitive team?
New main tank. I mean, I think that, in my mind, is the biggest thing with them. I think when you look at Janus on New York, he was the guy that they put in hybrid maps, and then they generally did the worst in those maps. I think he is a player that has had consistent issues with positioning his entire time in the Overwatch League. And I think recently maybe those have gotten a little bit better. But I would still be curious about what putting a new main tank in the lineup would do for them.
Is there one main tank you would look at and go, that's the one?
That's the one.
No.
Oh,
another
you mean
player.
another player.
To select.
Who
could fix that?
As far as players in the league, I think honestly pretty much everybody you could swap in there, right? But I think there's a Korean player named Changshik that is not in the Overwatch League yet, and he would be, I think, great for that team, and I think I'm frankly surprised he's not in the league yet with his skills. So I say put him on Washington. You could probably do a lot of good things for those guys.
Before we move on from this matchup, let's talk a little bit about Philadelphia. Seem to be hot and cold. They either win or lose in dramatic fashion.
Yeah, they are definitely an either-or team with that one. And, they've started to try a little bit more DPS looks recently, and I think that's helping out. I mean, when Carpe's on your roster, you probably want to try some DPS looks if you can, right? And, Sato's been a little bit more with it than he has been. There's another main tank, I think, that's been struggling a little bit in the Overwatch League this season. But Philly, I think the jury's still out on them as far as, how far they can take this. I mean, they did have, of course, a big surge late last year to make it all the way to the finals. But I don't know if they can recreate that. I think it's going to kind of depend on how the meta shifts, things like that. Yeah.
Is there a league finals playoff or hosting curse?
Maybe.
The XL didn't make it to New York last year.
Philly
probably won't make it to Philly this year.
We're early in the history of the Overwatch League, but
we have a sample
Philly
of
could,
one.
I was going to say, yeah, but Philly could actually help reinforce that.
I know this is
it's possible.
I know this is a matchup on Sunday, but a lot of people coming here are looking forward to the Carpe versus DM matchup.
Oh, dude. Well, I mean, those guys. The story's been told many times. They named themselves Carpe Diem because they were a duo back in the day. Back in other teams they had played on, and so here they are facing off and facing off as two of the best DPS players we have in the league. So I hope we get that Widowmaker duel. I think it's going to be a really fun match regardless.
Last matchup we're going to talk about here on Saturday. We're going to spend a lot of time on this. Well, actually, before that, let's take a look at the statistics between Carpe and DM.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, it's just them interacting is a lot of fun, even on Twitter. You know, like they've been on multiple interviews where Carpe has literally said, you know, DM belongs in the Overwatch League even before he made it.
Oh, well, he did. Anyone who casted any of the tournaments in Korea could tell you the same thing. You know, he was in there when Monty and I were doing Apex. Wolf and Achilleos could tell you the same thing. That guy is a star DPS player. Obviously, we're seeing the Zarya stats because of the meta we've been in pretty much the whole year. But these guys really do kind of pop off on the hit scan heroes. And so
that is high praise from a MVP runner-up from last year, too. From
right?
Oh, exactly. I mean, but again, these guys were good friends. They were on the same team. You know, if you know it's going to be a good rivalry, too, because you know they're going to be messing with each other, you know, out of the game as well as in-game. You know the trash talks are going to be going back and forth, probably in the lobby and stuff like that. And, you know, we'll see. I hope we get some emotes. I hope we get some tactical crouching. It could be a good one.
I hope they bet like a social media post or something. You know, like the loser has to post something.
Well, you know, we had
like our challenge.
We had like the Lord bets back in the day with League of Legends and some of the analysts, where if you failed the other guys, they had to call you like Lord Monty or something like that for a while on social media. You know.
All right, let's talk NYXL versus Florida Mayhem. Lots to unpack here.
Yeah, well, you know, the thing is, New York
4-0.
New York's looking for another one of those undefeated seasons. Or not seasons, undefeated stages. They could get it this weekend.
Now,
Florida might help them out.
The interesting thing is, though, they are now the only undefeated team in this stage, yet they're still ranked third in our ESPN Overwatch League rankings, and we're not as confident in them as we have been in the past. Why is that?
Well, I mean, this is one of the, I would say they're number one on my, like, rage-inducing power rankings. No, actually, I'll take it back. For me, they're number 2 behind Seoul Dynasty, but we'll leave Seoul for a different time. But New York, I mean, this is a team that obviously is very, very good, but also a team that's very good at choking in playoffs. It's a team that randomly loses games to teams like Atlanta Reign. In fact, their only 2 losses in the season are to Atlanta Reign. But now that the meta is shifting again, I think we're going to be able to see a better NYXL, frankly, because I think this is a team that excels when their individual players can kind of shine here, right? When Jonak was at his best, he was being unleashed to be able to do more damage rather than kind of like staying back and supporting the tanks a little bit. So, you know, with New York, they are an enigma because they look so good, and then once in a while they just have these games where it's like, all right, who like gave them the Space Jam basketball and like sucked all their skill out before the match, right? Like, I mean, that just seems to happen with these guys, but I don't think it's going to happen today. I think it should be an easy win over Florida at least.
Let's ask, we have some time left, and we love having you here on the desk, so let's just ask some general questions. Who do you think will come out of this weekend joining the 0-7 club?
I don't know.
There are 3 teams in it right now, by the way.
Yeah.
Houston Outlaws joined last stage.
Sure.
LA Valiant in stage 1.
Right.
And Shanghai Dragons all of last season. Who's going to join them, if any?
I don't know. I mean, wouldn't it be crazy? I don't want to curse anybody, but wouldn't it be crazy if Atlanta Reign joined that club?
Oh, don't say that. Come on.
Because, I mean, I'm just talking, we're going like
Sorry,
full
home team.
worst case scenario here where, you know, they lose today, they lose tomorrow, they go 0-7 at their own homestand. Like, it's a story.
It is. It would be a story.
As journalists,
it would be a meme.
It's a story.
It would be a meme.
It's a story. But we hope it doesn't happen. And I don't think it will. Like I said, they've had a very, very difficult stage up until now. I think their opponents today and tomorrow are definitely beatable. But I'm just saying, it's a story.
What about the playoff pictures? Talk about the stage. I mean, a lot of some teams here are battling for overall playoff spots, but in terms of the stage playoffs, a lot of the same, right? Both teams who made it in stage 1 and stage 2 finals are qualified for stage 3. Are we on a collision course for that three-peat in terms of a final appearance again?
Maybe, maybe not, because now we've got a situation where both of those other teams have lost, right, outside of the playoffs. So I think we might finally be in a situation
where
we could...
Those teams being the Titans and the Shock.
Exactly, yeah, the Titans and the Shock. I think we could be in a situation where we could see a team like the Dragons or the Spark. The Spark are really, really good right now. I could see either of those teams making the stage finals. For once, Shock and Vancouver are looking beatable, so if it's going to happen, I think it's going to happen this stage.
Is it too late to hitch my wagon to the New York boat? It's my home now. This is my home
I mean,
then. I know I've been very
it's-
Atlanta on this broadcast. Is it too late?
It might not be too late, but it is very brave. I'll put it that way. Like betting on New York in the playoffs is a bit brave in Overwatch. So I think you can. I think they're a good team.
Betting on New York in anything is a bit brave. Betting on Brooklyn is different, but betting on New York in anything is a little brave.
you might regret that one. But I wouldn't say you're wrong. You wouldn't be wrong to make a decision like that, but you might end up being sad.
Well, despite everything,
many have been sad.
NYXL still ranked 3rd in our ESPN Overwatch League rankings. Let's get to some general thoughts. They are a good team, but like you said, unproven still in the playoffs. Let's get to some overall news and notes around the league. As we know, of course, Philadelphia chosen as the venue, Wells Fargo Arena, for the grand final.
Right.
I find this to be an interesting choice. I understand from a market standpoint the magnitude of being on the East Coast. But for 2 years in a row in a global league, what are your thoughts on Philadelphia getting that grand final spot?
I mean, thankfully, I'm not involved in any of the planning that actually goes into choosing that kind of thing. I would imagine it's some sort of, business-related decision.
Way above our pay grade.
I don't know, man.
Just your opinions.
I would like to, nothing against Philadelphia as a city, but it would have been cool to see it maybe in China or Korea or something like that, or West Coast. And obviously, we're going to have finals in those places down the road, I would imagine. But it is a little bit surprising to see it over there. It's going to be a great event regardless. I don't think it's going to end up at the end of the day making a big difference as far as how cool it's going to be. But I was a bit surprised. Yeah.
Europe should get a little bit of love. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see London or Paris.
I would love to go to London, man.
London's
I love
had some
London.
great esports events in the
This
last couple
is
of
all
years.
sounding like I really hate Philadelphia, but I don't.
Be careful. They may torch your house. That's what they do.
Never,
they torch things. That's the city of Philadelphia.
Really? They do?
Yeah. Anytime the Eagles lost, torch the streets.
I thought they just made good sandwiches.
Yeah, well, you have to cook
Good
the sandwich.
cheese
You have to
steaks.
cook
Yeah.
those cheese
That's
steaks
that's a
somehow.
debate for another day.
I had always heard the Philly fans are just the most polite, down-to-earth people.
They have
in
really
all of
strong
sports.
accents.
Yeah, you're running
and
it
then
back
they-
now. I
and then
see
they
what you're
torch
doing
it.
there.
That's right.
Good job. Good job. He's a professional, and that's exactly why he did
I
that.
love Philadelphia. Give me the key to the city, please.
Let's end on this. There are some rumors, of course, next stage we might see a little bit of different composition locks in the Overwatch League. What do you think about that possibly becoming a reality in the next stage?
Well, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen yet, obviously. But on the theory of something like 222, I think it could be a really beneficial thing in that I think it opens up the design space and that you can make each individual hero much more powerful if you can only include 2 of those heroes in that role, right? I mean, then you don't have to design from the standpoint of, do I need to worry that I'm making this hero too strong in tandem with 3 others of the same role or something like that, too? So I think it could be a very beneficial thing for the game. So, we'll see what happens.
What are your, just take us into your commentary notes a little bit for Toronto versus Atlanta before we let you go here.
Sure.
What sort of storylines are you going to be focusing on?
Well, I mean, the 2 big storylines for me are, can the home team win in front of the home crowd when they haven't been able to do it all stage? Like, at some extent, this is going to help the mental fortitude game. You mentioned earlier that Soul match. I think that kind of did tilt them a little bit. That kind of sent them over the edge as far as, their team mentality goes. This is the place you get it back. You go in front of the home crowd, you get that mentality back. I think it's going to help them out. On the Toronto side, the big story is going to be the new additions, right? Gods obviously, I think, is a great addition to this league. You've got Sharik in there. They're still kind of figuring out how much they want to really work him into the lineup. But I think overall it's just kind of like Toronto kind of finding their ground with this new roster, and Atlanta finding that mental fortitude.
So today we'll probably see a lot of GOATs, and we've been very happy to be joined by one of the GOATs of esports commentary. Yes.
Oh, you had that one
done.
planned. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah.
So final thoughts, Jacob, as we get into day 1 of the homestand.
Well, excited to see the Atlanta crowd. This should be a great event. I'm rooting for Atlanta, and they try to take down the Defiant and not join the 07 club. I know a lot of people on this desk. I know Emily has been very, very matter of fact that Toronto will win that match. It will not happen. So Atlanta will win today.
Just to
All right.
get you up to speed, we have a bet going between the Toronto-Atlanta matchup.
Okay.
And, I'm just going to slide this over here, just over to this side of the table there. Just
all right.
over there, just like that.
I don't
we'll
have
just leave that there.
I don't have an Atlanta
bit.
hat hidden anywhere to like slide the other direction.
You know,
but,
I threw
yeah.
a Team Canada jersey at BlizzCon. I can't throw it here because it would probably hit somebody in the head.
That's true. Yeah, there's like a railing back there. You can probably hit somebody.
So the crowd is set just over 2,500 fans. It's sold out both days for the Homestand weekend. Atlanta, gracious hosts. It'll be very interesting to see the crowd reaction and all of the matchups here at the Cobb Energy Center in Atlanta. We thank you very much for joining us here live on our pre-show. Don't forget, we will also be live here at the ESPN_esports Twitter account for our post-show. After all the matchups have concluded, we will be live. Jacob and I will break down all of the matchups and also give you a little bit of a preview on Sunday. This man will be on Twitch. He will be calling the action for Toronto versus Atlanta. Don't forget, you can also watch all the matchups live on the ESPN app and Toronto versus Atlanta today on ABC. For Jacob Wolf and Eric Doe-Alonquist, my name is Arda Ocal. Thank you very much for joining us here on Twitter, and we will see you on the post show.